When former Intel CEO Andy Grove released his best-selling book Only the Paranoid Survive in 1996, explaining how to spot major tech shifts that could threaten a business, the idea that Intel itself might one day face such a disruption felt mostly hypothetical. Intel's stock reached its all-time high on August 31, 2000, more than 24 years ago. Things have changed a lot since then. Intel is now about 30 times smaller than NVIDIA in terms of market value. It also fell behind other major players like Qualcomm, Broadcom, Texas Instruments, and AMD. For many years, Intel held the top spot in semiconductor sales, but after 7 straight quarters of revenue decline ending in early 2023, it was surpassed by NVIDIA. In 2024, Intel reported a $19 billion annual loss, its first since 1986. Following November of that year, it dropped from the Dow Jones Industrial Average after a 25-year run, replaced by NVIDIA, a symbolic end to its long-standing role as one of the original tech giants in the index. At its peak, Intel dominated the global chip market, with its processors found in nearly every personal computer. Grove saw Intel as more than a parts supplier. He wanted the company to help shape the future where PCs would be used for everything, from gaming and watching videos to storing photos and keeping in touch with friends. Intel would power all of them. While Intel accurately foresaw the importance of the PC, it failed to keep pace with the rise of mobile computing and the explosion of AI, the two biggest tech shifts of the past 15 years. Almost 20 years after Grove shared his vision, Intel is nowhere near what it once was. A series of mistakes brought the company to where it is today. In this video, we'll take a look at what led to Intel's decline and what it might take to make a comeback. The first cracks in Intel's dominance started to appear around 2010. Apple had launched the first iPhone 3 years earlier, and it could have featured an Intel chip, but instead, Apple went with ARM, a little-known British chip designer at the time. Up to that point, ARM was viewed as a smaller player, mainly designing tech for niche, low-margin markets. But suddenly, mobile devices were on the rise, giving users much of what a PC could do, but in their pocket. And since ARM already had the right technology, it quickly overtook Intel as the leader in mobile chip making. Jobs explained that Apple passed on Intel because the company was slow, and Apple didn't want Intel to sell the same chips it would make for them to other companies. Today, nearly every smartphone runs on an ARM-based chip rather than Intel's x86 architecture, which dates back to 1981 and was designed for PCs. Chips from Apple and Qualcomm, built on ARM's designs, use significantly less power than Intel's processors, making them better suited for battery-powered mobile devices. That shift also hinted at what would come years later, when Apple, along with other device makers, dealt Intel another major blow by replacing its processors in some PCs with more efficient ARM-based alternatives. In 2020, Apple officially stopped using Intel chips in its Mac lineup. Today, Macs run on Apple's ARM-based chips, and in 2024, some of the first Windows laptops with ARM-based processors started hitting the market. More affordable laptops running Google's Chrome OS are also increasingly turning to ARM designs. Meanwhile, competitors like AMD were gaining ground in the PC market as well. They saw the growing importance of cloud computing, while Intel struggled to keep up with the intense pace of innovation, also known as Moore's Law, named after Intel co-founder Gordon Moore. He estimated that the number of transistors on a chip could double every 2 years, boosting performance and speed. Intel made efforts to break into smartphones. It released an x86-based mobile chip called Atom, used in devices like the 2014 Asus Zenfone. However, it struggled to compete with ARM-based rivals, and the mobile lineup was discontinued by 2016. That failure marked the beginning of years of missed opportunities for Intel. Another big shift in technology was happening, and just like with mobile, Intel wasn't ready for it. Graphics processing units, or GPUs, started as gaming chips, built to handle heavy graphics. However, researchers and engineers recognized early on that GPUs were also well-suited for the kind of parallel processing needed to power AI algorithms. Once again, Intel lacked the right products to keep up with competitors like NVIDIA and AMD, who are now leading the next major tech wave. NVIDIA, which was once a small Intel competitor focused on GPUs for gaming, became a key player in the tech world within just a few years. The same chips originally built for graphics turned out to be perfect for handling the massive data demands of artificial intelligence. Today, NVIDIA is the top 3 most valued company on the planet, with a market cap of $2.7 trillion. That's about 30 times larger than Intel's $86 billion market cap. To break into the AI space, Intel launched a chip called Gaudi last year in hopes of gaining some ground in the fast-growing AI market. But it didn't really take off. The chip is built using a 5-nanometer process, something Intel doesn't make itself, so it depends on an outside foundry for production. In 2024, Intel projected $500 million in Gaudi sales, but later dropped that forecast. For comparison, AMD expected around $4 billion in AI chip sales that year. And then there's NVIDIA. According to analysts surveyed by FactSet, its data center business, driven by AI GPUs, was expected to generate $57 billion in the second half of the year alone, with total AI revenue for the year close to $100 billion. Lip Bu Tan took over as Intel's CEO in March 2025, stepping in at a critical time as the company works to regain its competitive position in the semiconductor industry. According to Reuters, Tan is considering major changes to Intel's chip manufacturing and AI strategies, including potential cuts to middle management and adjustments to the company's manufacturing approach. He reportedly told employees that tough decisions would be necessary to get Intel back on course. In his first letter to shareholders, Tan laid out a clear plan for Intel's future, with a focus on new products and running the company more efficiently. His message was direct. The company needs to streamline operations, cut costs, and meet its commitments in order to re-establish its position in the tech sector. Speaking at Intel's Vision event in Las Vegas, where the company was meeting with customers to talk about its products, Tan said he had spent his first weeks on the job listening to their feedback, and admitted that Intel had not met their expectations. "Please be brutally honest with us. This is what I expect of you this week, and I believe harsh feedback is most valuable," Tan told the audience. Tan also made it clear that his main focus is bringing in and keeping top engineering talent. "We lost quite a bit of talent. That's my top priority, to recruit some of the best talent in the industry to come back and then to rejoin or join Intel. We're going to really drive some new ideas, giving engineers freedom to innovate from within." Intel spent most of its history making chips just for itself. When Pat Gelsinger became CEO in 2021, his main goal was to turn Intel into a contract chip maker that could compete with TSMC, the company that manufactures chips for Apple, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, and others. However, according to former executives quoted by Reuters, Intel struggled to match TSMC's level of customer and technical service, which led to delays and failed tests. Tan's current direction builds on Gelsinger's earlier plan with some adjustments. In recent weeks, Intel has shown progress in its manufacturing capabilities, and as reported by Reuters, has attracted interest from companies like NVIDIA and Broadcom, which have started early test runs. AMD is also testing Intel's process. To support its manufacturing goals, Intel and TSMC have reached a preliminary agreement to set up a joint venture that will oversee Intel's manufacturing facilities. According to TechCrunch, citing the information, TSMC will hold a 20% stake in the new company. Instead of putting in cash, the Taiwanese firm will contribute its technological expertise and train Intel's staff. The information also reports that alongside Intel, other unnamed US chip makers will be shareholders in this venture, retaining the majority stake. Meanwhile, TSMC will handle operational management at certain Intel factories. For now, TAN must prioritize stabilizing Intel's manufacturing operations to support its planned chip releases. The company's upcoming line of advanced chips with built-in AI capabilities, called Panther Lake, will rely on its in-house factories and a new set of production technologies referred to as 18A. This process node is central to both TAN's strategy and Intel's future product plans, which also include the Nova Lake processors. Intel claims 18A will deliver up to 15% better performance per watt and 30% greater chip density compared to previous nodes. According to TAN, the company's Arizona facility is preparing for high-volume 18A production, which is expected to ramp up later this year. Government policy is also playing a major role in shaping Intel's current strategy. Intel finalized a deal with the U.S. Department of Commerce in November 2024 to receive a $7.86 billion grant for domestic semiconductor manufacturing under the U.S. CHIPS and Science Act, down from an initial $8.5 billion due to a separate $3 billion allocation for the Secure Enclave program, which supports military chip production. As of January 2025, Intel has received $2.2 billion of the grant, according to TechCrunch, with the remaining $5.66 billion to be disbursed as milestones are met. In addition, Intel secured $11 billion in federal loans and is eligible for tax credits worth up to $25 billion, tied to its planned investment of over $100 billion to expand operations in Oregon, New Mexico, Arizona, and Ohio. Donald Trump's emphasis on boosting domestic manufacturing could play to Intel's advantage, given the scale of its chip-making operations in the U.S. The company may receive considerable regulatory support aimed at expanding domestic chip production. Newly imposed tariffs also make it more expensive for foreign fabrication companies to produce and export chips to the U.S., though it's unclear how long these tariffs will stay in place. Taken together, these factors could drive more business to Intel. Its foundry division, which produces chips for third-party customers, may see stronger demand, particularly as companies seek to rely on U.S. suppliers to avoid potential duties. Intel could also secure a greater number of government contracts, as it remains the only American semiconductor company that both designs and fabricates leading-edge logic chips domestically. Semiconductors are critical to national security, an area Trump has consistently emphasized, and Intel's U.S.-based manufacturing may be seen as vital to protecting the country's technological independence. Many now see Intel as a strategic U.S. asset in the tech world. Vice President J.D. Vance reaffirmed this again at the recent 2025 Paris Artificial Intelligence Action Summit. The Trump administration will ensure that the most powerful AI systems are built in the U.S., with American-designed and manufactured chips. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video about Intel's journey, from dominance to disruption and a potential comeback. Please like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.